So you're going to need to see when the ball bearing leaves the launcher and when it lands. So you may, if you want to do a couple of trials, you could do that too. You could do a video and put some tape marks there and get a little more exact. That would be fine. If you do a trial and it is like way off from your prediction, then that means you probably just had a bad launch. I would do it again. So you can do 2 or 3 trials until and then put a tape mark and figure out exactly where it's landing. After that, you will find on step 8, before you fired, you were supposed to predict, before you fired, you were supposed to predict the range and time the projectile would be in the air. Then after you fire the projectile, you measure that range and time, and you measure the range and time. So after you do that, and it's set up how you want it, then you're going to fire it for real. So you can set up a ruler. And you can pretty much guess that your ruler is going to be halfway in between where the ball bearing lands and where it shoots. But again, you can do a couple of trials to make sure you want your ruler to where when you do a close-up, the ruler is going to be right exactly in line with the maximum height of the projectile. So I'm adjusting, but it's just me, so I can't have somebody adjust the video. So once you get it how you want it, if you want, you could put lines across the paper if you want. I didn't tape the second one up there, but you could do that. You should tape the second one up, or you could put lines however you want to do it. Then when everything's set up, you fire it for real. You'll do a close-up of this area to get as accurate as possible of the height. And again, the height needs to be from, and I didn't do this, but you need to measure the height from the top of the muzzle launcher down, or the height of the books, which should be the same. And then that's the height from where the ball bearing left the muzzle launcher to the top. That's the first height you need. Now from that maximum height, your instructions tell you what to do next. Okay, you know the angle. Okay, from the maximum height, you should be able to find the vertical muzzle velocity. You know the angle, so you can take that angle and vertical muzzle velocity and you can find the actual muzzle velocity. Once you know the actual muzzle velocity, again, this is all in your instructions, I'm just reading the instructions, you can use that in the angle to find the horizontal muzzle velocity. So now you have all that data. Then we're going to move the books underneath the projectile launcher. So we've changed 2 things. Now we've raised the level of the projectile launcher and we've lowered the ground. So now it's like the problems we've worked to where your projectile is landing below the level of where you shot. You will need to measure the height, and you should have measured the first height too, as I said. You're going to measure the height from the floor because that's where it's going to land to the muzzle launcher. You need to know that height. I left this out when I taped it the first time. Before you fire, step 8 says you're going to predict the range and time the projectile will be in the air. You'll do that using all the data you collected in steps 4, 5, and 6. You should be able to do that. If you need help, you can always ask me. After your prediction, you're going to need to measure that height. You'll need that height also to make that prediction. Once you make that prediction, then you'll fire the projectile as we talked about before. Once you do that, you're going to fire, like we've done a few dozen times. You're going to fire the projectile. You're going to need to measure the range and the time. You've done this enough. You can figure out the best ways. I'm putting some rulers down to illustrate. You're not going to be able to do a close-up on the distance because you need to see when the ball bearing leaves the launcher and when it lands. So you're going to need to see when the ball bearing leaves the launcher and when it lands. So you may And if you want to do a couple of trials, you could do that too. You could do a video and put some tape marks there and get a little more exact. That would be fine. If you do a trial and it is like way off from your prediction, then that means you probably just had a bad launch. I would do it again. So you can do 2 or 3 trials until and then put a tape mark and figure out exactly where it's landing. After that, you will find, but pick one trial. After you've got some tape marks down and you can get a pretty accurate range, pick one trial and measure the time once you do your final trial. And then as always, we do our percentage error between our prediction and what we measured. On 11, we're going to estimate our error in our original height measurement and see how that would affect our prediction. Good luck.